Salutations and welcome to Monomythic. My name is Kevin Garcia, professional comic book historian. Today we're talking about Comic Cons, how to run them, and what you should never do if you try to run your own event. Joining me today are a couple of professionals in the Comic Con industry that have been doing this for several years. I have Thomas Delfi, who has been convention director for the Nerdtino Expo in Philadelphia. Welcome, Tom.
Great to be here.
And we also have Midge Grundman, who's been helping run multiple conventions around Texas and Arkansas, and is programming director for the Greater Austin Comic Con. Welcome, Midge.
Thanks for having me.
So I want to talk to both of you because both of you have different experiences running conventions at different levels of running. Tom, if I'm correct, are you one of the founders of Nerdtino?
I am the founder of Nerdtino.
That's what I thought.
Yep.
How did well? First of all, can you explain what Nerdtino is, how it began?
Certainly. So the Nerdtino Expo is the first East Coast Latinx comic book convention dedicated to promoting the history and presence of Latin Americans in pop culture. We are the first show of our kind to cater to promoting the community of Latinx, Hispanic, Afro-Latin, Afro-Caribbean, and indigenous creators in geek culture on the East Coast. We're one of about 5 or 6 conventions now in the United States that works within this community. Originally, Nerdtino started as a general geek community for Latinx fans, in the same way that you have groups like POC cosplayers. But in 2016, as the community began to evolve, and myself and my teammates that joined in starting this convention, realized that there was a potential demand for an actual convention. So we launched the concept of the show in 2016 and ran it for the first time in 2017, and we've been around for the last 3 years.
That's pretty cool. I've done a few Latinx conventions here in Texas, and I have some friends that run them in California. Honestly, that's become kind of a bigger thing. There's one here in Austin that's a free convention, free to the public, called MexAmericon, which we would normally have every year. Who knows what happened this year, I guess. And Midge, could you tell us a little bit about your background with conventions? You've worked at several different ones. What kind of conventions have you been part of, and what have you done at what levels?
A number of different types of conventions. So I'm the programming director for Greater Austin Area Comic Con, the Hill Country Comic Con out in New Braunfels, the Fayetteville Con in Fayetteville, Arkansas. We've done smaller shows around town. I've done everything from roughly tech queuing it, so running panels and room moderating and stuff like that. I've worked as a moderator for different panels, and I'm a programming director. So I wear a lot of hats.
Now I think about it, you've also managed volunteers at some level, correct? On that as well?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Speaking for myself, by the way, I've been speaking at Comic Cons around Texas for the past 10 years. Mostly at the beginning, it was just down along the valley in McAllen and Brownsville and South Padre Island. And then I've done several in Houston and Dallas and San Antonio and several in Austin. But see, my end is not the running of it, but being part of it, where I'm speaking at giving my own talks or leading a guest panel, that kind of a thing. And it's kind of weird. I feel like compared to you two, I'm more of like the outsider, where I'm just kind of like seeing things happen, but I'm not actually involved with the decision making that goes in. So I don't really get to know what goes in behind the scenes when there's good ideas and bad ideas. Supposedly this year, I might have been able to talk at San Diego Comic-Con, but that's not happening. So that's a whole thing.
Sorry to hear that.
That's not good.
I found out that I could be talking at it after the convention had officially been canceled. So I was like, oh, well, might have been nice.
Thank you. It's like the moderator consolation prize.
Yeah, it's like you get to go to the most famous comic book convention in the country, if it had happened. So I want to talk to you guys, since both of you have been part of conventions that were starting out. I don't want to call them small conventions because they're both in big cities and they both have had good showings. But definitely on a different level than San Diego, where it's its own little, ecosystem into itself, I guess. What is it like founding a convention or being part of a convention that's starting? Are there things that maybe you wish you knew going in, or that you would have been warned about going in? Tom, let's start with you. What was that like with Nerdtino?
Oh man, so convention organizing by 2016 had been such an evolved game since 2008 and the emergence of social media. And it's thankfully I had the benefit of, before I was on Nerdtino, I worked for a smaller convention as the vendor coordinator, and eventually I became the right hand as assistant director. Eventually I did leave that team, and I decided to form Nerdtino. And the biggest thing that you encounter is that when you're in the culture of leadership among conventions, it's such a varied bag. You have, I've always compared it to being like you're one part circus big top ringmaster and one part geek gangster. In that you're negotiating and working within all these different families and tribes, and there's relationships that span years that you walk into the middle of for these different business dealings. It's a lot more complicated than just pulling together a room and signing a couple of guests. It's navigating that community. It's like building a reputation and building your audience. And it's a very involved and a very consuming process.
When you say leadership, are you talking about like leadership of like other people helping you run Nerdtino, or leadership like communicating with people running other conventions?
Other conventions and other events and even communities. We're in 2020 we are at this evolved state of conventions and geek culture where people previously that in decades ago would have just been fans that would have been isolated, and if they had enough money they could run a show. Right now you have so many more people that are empowered by the reach of social media and the internet that they've been able to carve out their own fiefdom almost. It's there's territories, there's rules, there's things you've got to understand, and there's toes you got to avoid stepping on, and there's people that you need to know if you want to excel. So it's a very involved process. And thankfully I came into it as, originally my background is as a museum professional, so I already had that sense of community organizing to produce an exhibition or a project. So I had that knowledge, and it was just a matter of adapting that and being able to circumvent and connect with personalities and make things happen.
Midge, you're more of the person often in the thick of things, I guess, as stuff is going, planning these events.
Yeah.
That's putting it lightly. Putting from your perspective, if you're at a convention that's having their first year of a convention, or maybe even their second year, are there things that you've seen that were like a really good idea at the time, or maybe things that maybe shouldn't have happened, or maybe that again you wish you did differently in those early years of a convention?
From my perspective, one of the things that I'm very opposed to is printing the schedule on people's badges. That one's a problem with timestamps, because inevitably there's going to be a last minute change. So you have to be the guy standing at the door saying, I'm really sorry, but that panel's not going on tonight, or it's had to cancel, or we're having to do that. Have it posted everywhere. Have it posted live. The glory of social media these days is that you can have apps people can download on their phones for things like that. Anything that can be very easily movable is great. And then you don't necessarily know in that first year how popular some of your programming is going to be. So you don't want to stack it wrong. You don't want to put things on too early. You don't want to put them on too late. I've seen some conventions that have programming running during your cosplay competition, and those are never going to go well.
I've given a few talks where I was the one talking during the cosplay competition, and I have like 5 people in front of me, and I'm okay with that. I know what's going to happen. It's just, it is what it is.
Right.
One of the big things that gets me is when you have 2 different panels happening that are basically the same topic. I don't remember what convention I was at, but I was at a convention where they had somebody giving a He-Man, a voice actor panel, and then at that exact same time was animation of the 80s. And it's like, if you're a fan of this, you're going to want to go to both.
Exactly. And that's one of the things that, for me, I have to very much keep in mind. There's a lot of scheduling that goes into things, but also having to be very fluid with it. I would have also, in my early years, hired a floating panel or a moderator, because I've run into instances where I needed a moderator. There was no one there. Okay, looks like I'm doing this today. Because it wasn't communicated early in the day. Whoever was on the panel said, "Oh no, we don't need that," and then they're like, "Oh no, who's our moderator?" And we're going, "But
yeah, I've been floating moderator at a few panels. I mean, at a few conventions, and in fact, part of it, what it was is very often they didn't plan for it, but I would tell the people that were like volunteer managers and stuff, "Hey, if you need me, call me." And then I end up getting a call 30 minutes later. "Hey, it turns out we need a moderator." Mm-hmm. so yeah, that happens. I got a comment right here from Karsten Sethra, who also he goes to conventions all over the area and films them, puts them on his YouTube channel. He says the worst he's seen is that they'd have a cosplay panel at the exact same time as a cosplay competition. I believe that. Yeah. Well, I mean, since we're talking horror stories, and these are just bad idea things right now. Are there any horror stories that are things that definitely come to your mind and you think, "Oh man, I can't believe that happened"? You know, Midge, you were saying earlier that you were thinking of some horror stories that you went through.
One would actually be the first show that you and I worked together. The benefit show for Doc's Car Garage.
Oh, I remember that one. Yeah,
right. That one they had me. I know. They had me doing the technical piece of it, right? So that's what I was doing. I hadn't planned anything, but I was executing everything. And I said, "Okay, we've got 2 rooms with 2 screens. How are we doing this?" Because we were actually showing, we were premiering The Pantsless Detective and then doing a bunch of other stuff. Yeah. I didn't have it on a thumb drive. I didn't have all of the files. I had links to the website that it was being played on. And then they're like, "Oh no, we have this system in place where it'll stream to both rooms." And I'm going, "I don't think I remember that at Docs, but okay." And we get there and the lovely people at the venue said, "Oh no, we don't have that." So it led to an entire day of me pale mail running through Doc's Car Garage, trying to get things to sync, and I had timed it out perfectly so that I could run to one room, get the video started, breathe for 2 seconds, and then run to the next one so that I could flip the video.
As I'm remembering that event, when I got there and asked where my panel room was, I was told, "It's going to be over here. It's going to be over here." Then I'm like, "No, it's going to be over here. It's going to be over here." And then I'm like, "I'm supposed to start the panel in like 5 minutes." They're like, "Turns out we don't have a panel room. Why don't you just talk right here?" Yeah. I ended up talking in front of the vendor tables, which was, the vendors got to watch me, so that was cool. Yeah. I didn't mind. It was fun.
With the screen behind you, and then I had to actually be your clicker.
I remember that.
Yes.
Tom, how about you? Any if not Nerdtino, maybe other conventions you've been at? That's a scary laugh already.
Oh man. I mean, I could go so many places. I mean, the sentiment for me has always been that, like, when you actually get to the day of the con, you're trying to pilot a ship that's on fire. Mm-hmm. It's the stuff's gonna go wrong. That's the innate nature of it, and you have to be adaptive to it. The TV that you rented from the venue isn't working after someone's panel, and then there's another panel on that needs the TV, and suddenly you're not able to use it. You realize that, oh wait, we needed petty cash to pay for this other thing, and there's no ATM on site. And it's literally literally surviving a con is making sure that you have a community of people and a crew that have that reflexive nature, in that they're not paralyzed by fear. They're not paralyzed by challenge. They accept it. And when you say do something or figure it out, they figure it out. And sometimes it's on you being the skipper of it. You've got to take point on things and you have to provide proper guidance. But it's making sure that you have that team, that you have that you build that confidence within, that you don't have to be on top of something. And that's a personal challenge I've had to overcome, because my first year I was running around between everything, and I had to take back I had to scale that back and realize, okay, I got to make sure that everything is in everybody's hands. And I was always confident in the people. I was just letting my own fear get to me,
Yeah, speaking for myself, I'd always try to have everything I might need with me. So like I would bring my own computer, I'd bring my own HDMI cables. Sometimes I'd even have, well, I guess everything is HDMI now, but for a while I would bring my own VGA cables and converters if I needed them. I'd bring my own clickers. For a brief time, I was bringing my own projector because I always, whenever I give my own talk, I like having things on the screen behind me. And so sometimes I'd just bring my own screen, So yeah, you do that. The biggest, or I guess most infamous one I've been part of was Space City in 2016. I don't know the full history behind Space City, but I know there had been some conflicts between those producers and the people who put on Comic Palooza in Houston, and Space City was its own thing. And that particular year, pretty much everything that could go wrong did go wrong, and it was just a series of events. I know that what happens, a friend of mine I know is a manager who helps book voice actors onto various conventions. And he sends me a message saying, "Hey, Kevin, why don't you give these guys a call and see if they need a moderator?" And I'm like, "Sure, no problem." And I went to look up the event and I go, "The event happens in 2 days. Who needs a moderator in 2 days?" And he's like, "Just ask him." And I was like, "All right, sure." Send him a message. They're like, "Yes, come on over." So then I found out who needs a moderator in 2 days. They had a different lead volunteer every day because each day that somebody would have quit being lead volunteer. There was at one point where the Sons of Anarchy were going to get into a fist fight with some of the promoters of the event due to miscommunications and other confusion. that was in the news. Sure. Actually, it was in the news, the fist fight. Briefly, one of the volunteer managers calls me and says, "You said you'd moderate a panel if we needed you, right?" I'm like, "Yeah, I could do another panel." It's like, "Okay, we need somebody to do the Sons of Anarchy," and I'm like, "I've never watched that show. I mean, I worked with Ron Perlman once, but he's not going to remember." So it's like I'm quickly doing all the research I can on this show, and then right like 2 seconds before it starts, he calls me back. "We found the guy." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool."
Oh man,
yeah. But I still got to do it. I got to work with Alex Kingston, so that was a lot of fun, and I worked with a few people from from some of the zombie TV shows and stuff, and that was cool. But it was just that was the last year they did Space City, so that didn't happen anymore. Speaking of celebrities, let me ask you guys: is there anything that has to go into consideration? I mean, are you looking at budget primarily? Are you looking at whether or not they fit the topic primarily? What are you looking at when it comes to inviting people to a convention?
So all of the above.
All right.
And also cultural relevance. What's going on with them in general? What projects do they have coming up? What do they have that is going to draw in an audience? Because remember, your celebrities are part of that initial hook, right? So you want people who are going to create a buzz, and they need to fit the theme of your con if you have a theme that's going on. They need to have something interesting to say. Like, there are some celebrities that I love that maybe not so good at public speaking, or accessible to fans, stuff like that. I take into consideration when we're talking about who to bring in. I want to know how they are with their fans. Because for me, one of the things that I think about is I have to interact with these people every time they come to a convention. I don't care if you're rude to me. I care about how you act with the fans. That is always number one. If you're rude backstage, all right, fine. I'm a big girl, figuratively speaking. I can take it. But if a little kid walks up to you and they want to shake your hand, I want you to be the guy that pays attention to that kid. And again, whatever they have that fits the theme and is relevant as far as the topic goes.
Tom, how about you? Have you had, I was going to say issues, but what goes into thinking when you're talking about inviting somebody?
Well, it's definitely knowing what their reputation is and knowing, how they interact with crowds and, especially, again, that relevancy. Are they doing something new? Are they someone that, like, if I'm going to Google them, am I going to find out, like, they've had this bad interaction with this community, or they've got a whole Wikipedia section that
lists controversy.
Does exactly, right? And a big thing with Nerdtino is that one thing I'm a firm believer in is that I recruit soldiers and I recruit patriots. And
for the cause, you mean?
For the con,
Yeah.
but not just for the con, but for the Latinx community. Like
no, I said for the cause. For the cause.
Oh, the cause, yes.
Yeah.
Like people that like, it's not just a paycheck. It's literally, wait, you're doing this? This is awesome. I'm soldiering on, and making sure that when I speak with them, when I talk with them, there is that enthusiasm. The biggest wrangling is getting through the energy of working through agents and stuff like that. Whereas you have these guests that are like, come on, let me go do this thing. I want to go to this show. I want to go to a con where I can speak Spanish. And
it's funny. It's funny you mentioned that. I talked about Mex Americon earlier. When I went to one of their events, they had the creators of the Seis Manos Netflix show, and they didn't invite them. What happened is that they found out there was a Latino focused free convention for the community, and they said, how can we be involved? So that's exactly the kind of people you want to get involved.
Oh yeah, we had them in 2019. Pretty much everyone we've ever recruited for our show has been like a diehard for the community, and I've always been glad to have them. And then just making sure that even if you're a small con, you can take care of these people. You can make sure that they have a good time at the show. It's not just sitting at the table, but it's actually being able to enjoy the city and being able to enjoy the community and learn about cool stuff. And one thing I make an effort to is I like to connect folks between like some of my independent creators and exhibitors, and I like to connect them to guests and be like, hey, Daniel Pacino, you want to check out this awesome Aztec art guy?
Well, it's funny. I got a comment here. Moises Chulan says that he thinks it's great when he hears Midge knowingly laughing, because you've seen a lot of these things firsthand, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think Moises is another one of your panel hosts, right?
Yes, absolutely. We've worked together for a number of years now, and we've had some interesting experiences with different celebrities. I will forever be scandalized by Winnie the Pooh cussing very much in the middle of a panel, and I was like, my childhood, it's going out the window.
I want to put that on my phone.
I knew it was the greatest thing ever. I think I sent you pictures of it that may have been blurry, because those were some that I could actually take. I had 5 minutes to be like, it's Winnie the Pooh. Click. But as he is dropping more F-bombs than I do in the middle of a panel, I'm like, oh my God. This is even a bit much for me, and that's hard to do.
Well, for me as a moderator, I'm always trying to talk to the guests beforehand, so I get kind of a feel for what they want as a guest, So like, I got started as a moderator because originally I would go to conventions and just give a talk, like a TED Talk type thing, just talk about something nerdy, right? But I went to one in South Texas, and they had Vern Troyer on Mini-Me, and it was very clear that he didn't know what to do on a stage by himself. So he was up there on stage by himself, and this was an actual stage. It wasn't even like they were like at a table. It was like on a stage with like an audience, and he's just like, so does anyone have any questions? And I went to the promoter after that, and I said, look, from now on, if you have a guest, if you want a moderator, I'll be ready. And for each guest, I would go to them beforehand and say, like, what would you like from this? Like, do you want me to be on the stage with you, asking questions? Do you want me to be just in the audience, getting with the microphone, so I don't have to say anything to you at all? So like the guys who do Angry Beavers, or the guy that not Angry, I can't remember his name right now, but the voice actor does Angry Beavers and Invader Zim. That guy, he can just run by himself. He needs nobody on stage. He'll just go back and forth between the voices. He'll be real good rapport with the audience. But other people, they need that interaction. So it's like,
That's one thing that I try and do for my moderators to front load is I will ask. One, I like to make sure that they've met the guest before they go on stage. I want there to be a moment, if we can make it happen, of interaction so that people have a face associated with who they're going to be talking to. Mm-hmm. And then I also try and keep in mind who's going to be the best fit, because you always have different types of moderators. Some are going to be very conversational. Some are going to be like a game show host with a very big personality. And sometimes you need that big personality to really balance out the celebrity. But also, I try and vet what they do and don't want to talk about. So in the last week after we've booked them, have you had a very messy divorce. We don't want to go there. Do you have things that you want to plug, stuff like that, so that I can have some stacked notes to give to my moderators before the show goes live? It just makes life a little bit easier. Stuff like that. So it's really figuring out your personality types, that kind of diversity, and then all of that other stuff that goes with it.
Also on the topic of panels and a different type of celebrity, cosplayers. I mean, it went from being something that was just kind of didn't even have a name, just dressing up as characters back in the day, to being kind of a culture into itself, to being now a profession where there are professional cosplayers who come in. Is there anything in particular that goes into? Well, let me ask, Tom. Have you had professional cosplayers at Nerdtino? They either have a booth or they have a panel or they've been invited in?
Oh yes, we've had Jay Justice, we've had Allegriana, we've had Victoria Avalor, Maki Roll, Lewis Stardust. We've definitely made sure to reach out to that community, and the one thing I've learned is the cosplayers are in the know. They have navigated the scene both as fans and professionals and moderators. They wear as many hats as the con bosses and anyone working within the show. So you definitely want to have that kind of relationship with them, where not only are they your guests, they are your resources, they're your eyes on the ground. They understand what it's like to be on the other side of that table, and they can point out flaws and things that you need to improve about your show. So it's a very important relationship to cultivate. And also it's just generally good within general promotion to have a community of cosplayers that you can rely on to be part of your promotion team. We would normally be doing the Philadelphia Puerto Rican Day Parade. And every year we would bring a small group of cosplayers that would just hang out with the crowd, and because the one thing with doing Nerdtino is part of our show isn't focusing on just attracting the traditional convention audience or the Latinos within that traditional audience. I mean, we want everybody, but we want to also connect with people that haven't been to a convention before or haven't felt comfortable being at a convention before, but they've got their car decaled out with Dragon Ball Z stuff, right? So cosplayers are instrumental both as guests and on the promotion, connecting people with the idea of the convention and that this is a good time. This is a good place to be.
It's funny you're talking about inviting people in and telling them that they are welcome too. I know some of the Latino Comic-Cons and Latino Expos that I've been to, I would try to invite some people, hey, you should come check this out too. You'll like it. And I've actually had people tell me, oh, well, I'm not part of the community, so I don't know if I should go. And I'm like, but they want your money. they want you to go. The whole point is to get everybody out there. Even if a convention has a very specific premise when they're going out, that doesn't mean that only people who fit that category should come in,
I mean, one thing that we do is that, again, we make sure that we cultivate a space where if you're Latin, cool, come out, celebrate your culture. If you're Afro-Latin, Afro-Caribbean, cool. This is welcome to everybody that's part of our larger community. Are you not Latin? Cool. Come here and learn about stuff and buy some awesome art, and be able to be inclusive towards everybody and understand that they can have a great experience at this place. One of the things that we do is one of the things that when I started this show, because I'd previously had an experience with my previous show, we worked with hotels, and I myself, I don't particularly enjoy that. I don't view hotels as the optimal kind of venue for events. So what we do is that our venue is a Latin community center that's right in the heart of El Centro de Oro, which is the Golden Block, Philly's Latin neighborhood. So it's an institution that whether you're Latin or not, you're familiar with. We also, every year we have food vendors there, and they are Latin restaurants. That's a huge draw for people in the community and non-Latin folks.
Going back to cosplayers for a second, Midge, were there times we talked earlier about cosplay competitions and stuff and needing to have somebody moderating that, but also having professional cosplayers? Have you had any experiences that have helped form your opinions when it comes to who to bring in or how to utilize the cosplayers?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because what your cosplayers are at the end of the day is a bit of a bridge. It can be very intimidating to go talk to your favorite celebrity, but somebody who has put a lot of passion into this character and made it very unique. Oh, I see my Jeffrey there. It's Jeffrey down on hard times, and man, does he commit to that character. They're the approachable ones. They're the ones that are drawing in your normal audience. So I want somebody who's approachable. I don't want somebody who just looks like a character or is just whatever the case may be. I want them to be able to be approachable. If you're dressed as a Disney princess, you have to be able to handle 4-year-old girls and boys walking up to you and going, "Oh my God, it's Ariel." You have to be able to interact with people. I don't need you to just sit at a table all day. I need you to do that. And then I need you to sit on a cosplay panel and I need you to articulate how it is you do what you do, because it is a very interesting thing. It's a growing community exponentially. They're becoming celebrities. Yaya Han, for example, has her own costuming line of fabrics and patterns and stuff in Joann's and other stores like that. You have people building companies around this so that you don't necessarily have to be the one who's building the costume. You can still be that by going to a professional company that does it. Talking about getting started and how you don't have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on one costume. I want you to be able to speak to all of these things, and I want you to be able to talk to people in their 70s and little bitty kids who are really interested in what you're doing. That's what I need out of a cosplayer. That's what I need and what I think about when we book these people, because there are some of them that we've worked with for years that are phenomenal when it comes to running a cosplay competition. They're celebrities, so they can't actually participate in
Right.
the contest, but they're really good at keeping the audience engaged. Or if they're judging a cosplay competition, they have really good feedback for people who are competing. So these are things that I try and keep in mind when we're starting to book cosplayers for different events. I need you to be professional. I need you to be able to talk to people. I need you to show well. And I need you to have a good time, because you're that good time bridge. People want to talk to you. They want to get pictures of your costume. They want to talk to you about why you think this character is so interesting. So a lot of that stuff is what goes into it. And your reputation. I need your reputation. I need to know you're on your best behavior.
We're talking about events that are like specifically aimed at certain, like what your theme is and stuff like that. And the events that I've worked at that I've had the most cosplayers are anime conventions.
Yep.
And then you mentioned earlier, Tom, that the hotel's not a good place to have a convention. Honestly, I've been at some in hotels that were not very conducive. But there was one I went to in Dallas that had just it was in a hotel, but it was an anime convention, and they really utilized the space well. But one thing I thought was interesting about it at this particular convention, the Anime Con in Dallas, was that they had the Artist Alley in the hotel lobby, and then because it was a massive space, they had room for it, and then they had all the other stuff in the convention rooms where you had to pay to get in, and that meant that Artist Alley you could come to right off the street. So what happens is you'd have people that had not intended to go to a convention or hadn't bought tickets could go to Artist Alley, see everybody in cosplay costumes, and then they end up wanting to buy tickets and go upstairs and see what else is going on. I thought that was an interesting technique. Are there things that at the conventions you guys have worked at that are ways to utilize Artist Alley or a way to make Artist Alley work better? Tom, I know that you were talking earlier about wanting to promote Latin artists, but is there anything that you've tried to do to make that more, like to better facilitate that, I guess?
Well, it's with Nerdtino, we have more of, I don't want to call it curated, but I guess that's the closest word, in that we have a community of artists and exhibitors and vendors that work with us, that come out to our show, that it's not just putting up a vendor sign up. It's actually getting boots on the ground and connecting with these people and having them having them in a meaningful way connected with the convention. I've had people that have been with us since the beginning that aren't just, there are not just people who sell stuff at my show. They're people that provide advice, that provide resources, that are networks. It's it's again similar to the cosplayers. These are folks that know the ground game better than a lot of con bosses because they've been there. This is their bread and butter. They got to do this every weekend. So they see the details. So it's a matter of, cultivating that relationship with them and then also making sure you connect and promote their work. The big thing that I've always tried to do is with Nerdtino is if there's a project going on, if there's something cool, if there's even if there's another con going on that I think would be good for particular vendors, I reach out. I have them on Facebook. I got their phone numbers and I got their emails, and I'll be like, mira, like check out this show over here. Or oh, hey, there's this contract out here for this particular art job. One of the things that I'm particularly proud of is there was a film that came out about a year or so called El Chicano. It was this Punisher style superhero film that was focusing on a Latin American superhero, and I had reached out to them about a promotional thing, and they told me, "Hey, we want to do like this cool comic book art for the promotion of it." And I actually hooked up one of my vendors to it and got them a gig out of it. And having that kind of relationship, and builds endearment, builds loyalty, and it makes everybody happy.
You're talking about how this is their bread and butter and they need to go. A lot of my friends are artists, and I've met several of them actually in Artist Alley. I know as a guest, I mean, I love going to other panels as well, so aside from talking at them. But the number one thing I always go to at every convention I go to is Artist Alley. That's always what I look for. I want to find out, there's up and comers and everything. And it's a struggle. At some conventions I've been to, it's like the Artist Alleys are packed in like sardines. And other ones I've been to, they have been pushed to the back of whatever the event is, and you would never see them. So you'd see, oh, here's the celebrities, and here's the panel halls, and you get to leave. And you wouldn't even know where Artist Alley is. And then there's also the issue between whether there's Artist Alley and there's vendors, and are they the same thing? Do they need to be separated? What's that kind of thing going on? What were you going to say?
Oh, well, what I was going to say is that I actually go for sort of an alternative model.
Right.
So the great grandfather of all conventions is the World's Fair, right?
That's fair.
And the World's Fair, yeah, they had different exhibit rooms that had different themes, but the idea was that everything fed into each other, right? So it's the same, it should be the same with conventions as it is with museums. Exhibitions and different collections lead into each other and engage guests and attendees in different way within each other. So if your vendor hall isn't servicing the traffic flow of your guest section, and if your guest section isn't servicing the traffic flow of your vendor hall, you're not doing a good job, because these guests, they cost a pretty penny. And you know who pays that bill? It's not you. It's your vendors. It's your artists. It's your exhibitors. So whenever I design, because I've also been primarily skipper on designing the floor plan, I look at, okay, what do these folks actually sell? What is their art? Because in case you can't tell, I've bought from most of them. So, I actually look at, okay, maybe this person will flow into this. Oh, if I put this person over here, I really wanted them to connect with this person. That would actually work out for them. So it's a much more involved process. And I think that the traditional Artist Alley model is limiting and in some ways archaic. And it's not conducive to your exhibitors. It's not conducive to your artists. It's not conducive to your guests.
You see that kind of thing in a lot of other, not necessarily convention, but entertainment arenas too. Where if you're a new artist or a new vendor, like out at the Renaissance Festival, for example, which, let's be honest, is a nerd convention. I've worked
also,
as a boothie for a number of years. You're stuck in what we used to call tent row. and you are all the way in the back where no one's going to see you. And you have to do that to prove yourself for a few years before you ever get to go to the front of the game. Like, you get to be first and foremost. So for me, when I'm attending a convention, what should be happening is that my celebrities, that initial hook, it should be in the back, because you got to get to them. I want you to go through all of my other interesting people to get to those signatures that you want, because you're going to find stuff along the way. You're going to find a mechanized rubber ducky made out of clay that you really want, which I bought for my brother last year.
I want one.
They're so good. I need to find her card because she's amazing. Or I'm going to find a Friday the 13th lunchbox that I need for my purse collection with one of the stores out of San Antonio that works at a lot of our conventions. And then getting to know those people. But no, I completely agree that if your flow isn't servicing everything, you got a problem. I have that problem with some venues with my panel rooms, because the venue itself, the panel room may not be very interesting, but if you put the wrong kind of signage in front of my panel room, you're never going to know I have anything going on in there. So I have to put on my Rennie hat, walk out front, and start hawking what I have going on, which is kind of a pain. But
yeah, I've had to do that at some panels I've talked at.
It's never fun. I had one where we were blocked by Pikachu for about 20 minutes. Like, people need to get in so that they can hear people talking about things.
We got a comment earlier that said Midge is amazing, and this is from somebody named Vo Nguyen.
I don't know who that is.
Yeah, I know, right? No, he's the guy that puts on many of these conventions that Hill Country and Greater Austin. What kind of stuff? Go ahead.
He's the owner and promoter for both. So yes, for Hill Country.
So what kind of stuff have you done at Hill Country and Greater Austin to facilitate those vendors?
We try and really so for Greater Austin, for example, it's in a big arena.
Yeah.
So what
it's a hockey ring, I think.
Yeah, it is. It's actually the Texas Stars. It's their home turf. So the concourse isn't something that the concourse is fine. There's not a whole lot of stuff that goes on in the concourse. There's a few things that happen. But the arena is the big piece. So it's looking at our doorways, right? Where are people walking into? What are they seeing immediately? And that's how we start to build our flow. And then we start to take things like the scheduling into account. But you have Artist Alley, but that's still very accessible, easily seen, easily one of the first things that you do that's part of your path.
I think at that particular one, it's right next to the main stage. So
yes.
Yeah,
we have a chunk of them right next to the main stage. They're actually off to the sides. And then you have your vendors and your makers are interspersed. So they're really serving each other as sort of an artist and vendor marketplace. And that's kind of what it feels like when you're walking through it. It's really hustling and bustling and creating this conversation. So you go to look at, say, my brother's leather booth where he's making custom backpacks for people. And then right next to him, you have somebody else who's making something else. And then right next to them, you have another vendor who has something very interesting. So the flow between makers and artisans and artists really kind of stair steps all the way back to that signature that you want.
So you got like crafters, then you have artists, then you have people with like collectibles. So it's
right.
kind of moving down that.
Right. You'll have artists and comic book art. You'll have like your comic book artists and things like that. They'll be on kind of the outsides as well.
Oh, the guest artists, yeah.
Guest artists. So your guest artists will be that way, but it's still in that direct path to get to where you need to go. So that hook is the thing that's drawing you back to where you need to be.
Speaking of Vo, my first impression of him was seeing his car where he would drive around town with a vehicle that just says Greater Austin Comic Con along the side of it, big and colorful. And I want to ask both of you guys, what should, especially if somebody's trying to start their own convention, what should they do to promote themselves? What kind of publicity needs to be done? What kind of publicity could you probably have done without, that kind of thing? Tom,
boots on the ground. Oh, sorry.
Boots on the ground. I love that one.
Yeah, that's literally what I was gonna say. Boots on the ground. You actually need to work the territory that you're set up in, and you need to work within the the convention circuit that you operate within. You need to hit certain key shows and cultivate certain relationships. And you also, when it's boots on the ground, it's not just, okay, we need to go to XYZ key events. It's also keeping an eye out for resources, keeping an eye out, okay, where's your audience? The neighborhood I'm in, as far as my show, like, again, we didn't want to go for a convention center or a hotel because that's detached from that community. So I put myself, and the venue is called Taller Puertorriqueño. It's a Latin cultural center that's been around since the 60s. So what I would do is I would spend weekends, I'd park my car somewhere, and I'd walk the neighborhood. And I'd find resources. I found a guy that sells piragua, which is like a Latin, it's a Puerto Rican ice treat.
Mhm.
I found outside of this one supermarket, and I love this Instagram post. I'll send you the pictures. I should have sent you these pictures.
Hey, I can always put them up in post.
So it was, I was outside of a supermarket called Cousins that I'd never been to before. And I was driving along, so I pull over, I park in a Dunkin' Donuts, and I get on the ground. And I start looking around, and I start just doing some Googling, and I find out, oh, this is a community supermarket. There are like 2 of these things, and they're Latin owned, and they're in the neighborhood. And I go around the corner, and there's this massive mural of the Nightmare Owl Batman from the Court of Owls story arc, where he's like being like transformed into like this were owl monster thing.
Yeah, he's got this whole thing on the cover.
Yeah, and it's this huge graffiti tag on the side of this collapsed factory, and it's beautiful. So then I'm like, okay, I got to do some marketing in this area. So I go into Cousins, I talk with some of the folks. Hey, you mind if I put up a poster or a flyer out here? I get out into the parking lot, and this dude rolls up in a crimson and bronze gold Humvee with Iron Man decals all over it. Fully customized, tricked out Iron Man Humvee. And I just like wave and flag him over. And he just pulls over. He's like, hey, what's up? And I just hand him the poster for Nerdtino. And I'm like, bruh, please come. So, it's a lot of being aware of where your community is and surprising yourself with your resources. I got another weird story, if you don't mind. While I was in search for the guy who was selling piragua, I'm going through, I think it was on Lehigh at that time, but like it's in Kensington, it's a part of North Philly. And I was following a lead on where the guy was selling piragua, right? Because I haven't had one in 10 years. And I don't find piragua, but I find this dude that calls himself El Taco. And El Taco sells tacos. And he's this scraggly looking dude with a taco cart. And I explained to him what I was looking for. I said, oh, yeah, I run a Latino comic book convention. He's like, no way. Give me some flyers. I'm going to get this over to my guys. And he hops on his ATV and rides off to go over to his buddies who had that fully decaled out Dragon Ball Z Charger. And again, you're never gonna know like what resources your community has until you actually stop, explore it, and find out where can you promote to that larger audience. You can't just stay on Facebook, you can't just stay on Instagram and Twitter, and you can't just go to your regular cons. You got to go to the little graffiti party where outside of it, a bunch of guys have a tricked out Joker ride and a Black Panther GT, who are like, oh wait, there's a comic book convention in the neighborhood? Hell yeah.
Midge, what does boots on the ground mean for Greater Austin? I know Vo goes to openings of comic book movies a lot.
That is largely one of the things that he handles as our primary promoter. That man is out and about more than I could ever be. I have far too much social anxiety for that. And it's figuring out where our community is and where to get new members of a community. So Greater Austin, one of the things about that is that we call it a family-oriented comic book convention. Mm-hmm. And I put it in air quotes because what I mean when I say that is it's a way to share your nerddom with your family, right? So it's gearing everything towards that. So it's not only identifying where nerds are going to be. It's finding out where the pieces of that family are going to be. Where can I go? Finding those comic book shops. He does a lot of events at comic book shops, at, Vo, you're in chat right now. I see you. What's the one with the bouncy house stuff everywhere that you go to all the time? What's that place?
I know whenever I have my friends, whenever I have my, what's it called?
It's something mountain, and I can't remember it, and I want him to comment right now with it. But
whenever I have my friends at like opening of a comic book movie, or they're at a comic book event somewhere in Austin, they will Mount Playmore. They'll tell me, "Hey, that Greater Austin comic book guy is here. We see his car again, or we see his table." Yeah,
exactly. But that's also one of the other ways that he does it. Yay! Thank you, everybody who knows Mount Playmore better than I do. By the way, they have an adult night. Not only is it that, but he also does the car trick. We go to lunch. We have business lunches, and then he parks that thing out in front of whatever restaurant we're at, and inevitably there's like 8 conversations that happen just in a random parking lot.
They see the car.
It's true. So boots on the ground doesn't necessarily mean going to events, like Tom said. It's finding different places where they may be, and then creating those different kinds of relationships. Like Mount Playmore isn't necessarily something that you think about for a nerd convention, but he'll host other small events with different venues like Mount Playmore, where they have the Disney princesses go out and they have a Disney princess party at Mount Playmore. I wouldn't think about these things, but creating smaller opportunities to keep building your community for your convention. And even as small as if you're going to put a poster up in a coffee shop, make sure you're buying a cup of coffee so that the people that are working that register see your poster. You bought a cup of coffee from them. Maybe you offer them tickets. I don't know. But if you're creating those relationships, those are the people that are going to keep talking about what you're doing. Those are the people that are going to see that poster every day and say, oh, that sounds really cool. That's something different. I'm bored this weekend. Maybe I'm off for 5 minutes. I'll bring my friends, or I know people who do that. You're not going to get away from social media advertising. You're going to need it. But that's not all that you can rely on. Not only is it going where they are, it's finding them, finding new places, thinking about different places to be, different events you can partake in. Different parades you can show up for, different places you can park your very, very detailed carvo.
You know, it's funny. You talk about you can't avoid social media. Ask anybody who knows me. I'm horrible at social media. I can't promote things to say. I know. Thank you. I can't promote things to save my life. But yeah, the in-person stuff is what it's. Well, when that could happen. You mentioned earlier social anxiety, and we got a really good question here from Paige Nieto. And she says, what can cons do to help people who might be neurodivergent? And I was thinking about that when I read it. A lot of the conventions that I went to that were smaller or very niche oriented, like Latino Comic Con or the anime convention that is just anime and nothing but, very often I'll see both the people putting on the event and the attendees very, very accommodating, I guess, to people who have various needs, right? But then I'll go to an event that is primarily promoted as we have celebrities here, and you get people that are maybe not as used to dealing with people that might have needs that they're not familiar with. Is there anything that you've seen or done or put thought into for conventions you've run where you think about that?
Yeah, actually, a friend of mine has a nonprofit that specifically works with conventions for catering to a neurodivergent audience, because there are certain things that you need to keep in mind. A lot of cosplayers, there's a number of cosplayers who are neurodivergent, and you have to do things like building in safe, quiet spaces for them to retreat to and make them very obvious, like, this is too much, I need a safe place to go. Your staff also has to be very accepting when somebody, and learn how to kind of read those social cues when someone may need a little more assistance, so that you're not making a big thing about it, but you understand, you need me to take you to someplace. I can totally do that. And just taking 5 minutes to do that.
Something I have to do every day as a teacher as well. So
exactly.
I teach high school, for the record. Everybody does not know that.
Knowing your panelists. So I've had very, very, very on the spectrum neurodivergent panelists, and it's watching for their social cues and what was making them comfortable. And in some ways, for that panel specifically, controlling the flow of questions so that it was a little bit easier to receive and a little bit easier, like give them a break, give them a moment, but really understanding the needs of that community. What does that mean? Because neurodivergent is this big umbrella. But it's taking into account all of those little nuances that may come down and trying to find some way to work with it. You can't cater to everything. And then listening to that feedback that you're going to get, right? Listening to what people say the year after, or really paying attention during the show itself so that you see, I had a lot of people that couldn't find this and they needed more people to guide them and show them what was going on. How do we stack for that the next year? And then I would go to the owners of the convention and say, by the way, we had a lot of this one thing that came up. How do we fix that? Like one of the things that we talked about doing to make rooms and locations more accessible or more easy to find is doing different kinds of footprints on the floor. So all you have to do is follow the path. And it's very, so those footprints take you to those different locations that you would
That'd be really helpful for a lot of people for a variety of reasons.
Exactly. And it makes it more obvious than all of the big signage in the world. Because if your signage is too impressive, then people are going to take pictures in front of it. And again, also within the venue, offering enough space so that people can move around each other. It's a problem when it's very easy for you to get swallowed in the crowd. So you need different exits and entrances that don't involve going through a sea of bodies. So
especially if an event becomes more populated than you thought it was going to be.
Exactly. Like Greater Austin, for example, you can go through the concourse, but you can actually get, or you through the main floor, but you can actually get anywhere that you need to get from the concourse because there are different entrances.
Well, there's one last question that I want to ask both of you, and then thank you both for coming. And that is, if you could give one piece of advice to somebody who's starting a convention for the first time, hopefully they've been to conventions before, they've worked at them, they haven't just gone in blind. But if there's one thing they really, really need to think about, what should they think about before they start their first convention? Tom?
I would say it's two things. One, you need a crew. You need a crew that is stronger than you and that stronger than you in ways that you understand that you are weak. You need people that aren't going to sit there and think you're the greatest thing on the planet. The worst thing you can have is people that only think around your ego, and that's going to ruin you over time. You need people that are going to sit there and say, Tom, that's a stupid idea. And you need to be able to know that's why I brought you on. That's why I have you here. Rein in this idea. Tell me how to make something work. One of the people I'm most grateful for in the world is my assistant director, Adriana, who is actually, this is her third year of being on our crew, and it's funny because we'll be at, the team will be at dinner and, we'll be sitting there and I'll bring up an idea and suddenly we have this big argument and everybody's like, is mom and dad breaking up? But no, it's literally us hashing out an idea and breaking it down. And I wouldn't be able to have that kind of energy and that kind of building without someone that is willing to challenge my ideas and improve upon them or point out, Tom, this isn't going to work and you're leading yourself into a trap. The other thing that I would say is your con is bigger than you. It's bigger than your personality. It's bigger than any petty grievances you might have. And if you make it about yourself, if you hook it into this show isn't about us, it's about me, don't be a boss. Don't run these shows, because I have seen way too many con bosses that have wrapped themselves up in their cons as armor for their own personality flaws and have brought down something beautiful with them.
Midge, same question.
To kind of springboard off of what Tom said, it's not about you. It's about your fans. It's about your community. And always remember that vision. Like, what kind of event do you want to bring? And have a very clear vision of what that looks like. On your staff, have an I know a guy. I'm that guy. If we have something that we're missing, I know a guy. Because there's going to be something that you didn't think about. There's going to be something that goes wrong. Get comfortable with that. Get very comfortable with the fact that you cannot plan for anything and everything in live entertainment. You're going to do most of your organizing and all that stuff on the front end, but the second the show goes live, it's going to be a completely different ballgame. You will have talked to that celebrity, and like Moises said earlier, I saw him. You're going to get curveballs. The entire event is going to have curveballs. You will have things that won't work. You will have things that don't go right, and you can't kick yourself for it. But you do need to have a staff that can really roll with the punches. One of my favorite coworkers in the convention world has always said, we're going to drag it to the finish line. Have those people. Have those people that are not going to sacrifice the show, because the show is the important part, and they're going to make sure that it goes on come hell or high water. And they're going to make sure that their fans are leaving with a big smile on their face. Also, learn from it. One of the things that we do after every convention that I work is we look at what's going on, and then we think about what didn't we have. Because one of my jobs is to think about, since the conventions I typically run are more nerd conventions, with different elements. What did we miss? What don't we have? What can I fill in? How do I build a piece of a community for the next guy? And then go from there. Don't pretend that you know everything out the gate. Build people around you that have different experience levels. And then use each event that you have as a springboard for the next year to be better. If you're not going to grow in size, grow in quality. And don't sacrifice quality. That shouldn't be something that is ever on the cutting room floor. It should be quality above everything else. So.
Well, thank you both for coming. This has been a really great and a very informative conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
And for everybody else, I want to say thank you very much for following in the conversation. It's been really good getting questions and comments from people, and thank you so much for being part of this. I'd be very curious to know how many people want to be starting their own convention and what they're going to make it focused around. In the meantime, though, I want to thank you for watching. And once again, I just want to say, well, keep making myths.